He wasn't here before. Bloopers.
Okay. I can even put it as that might be the beginning of the video.
So in that case, I would say welcome back to iMovie Podcast.
That was the intro?
Of course.
Okay. So this is the 7th episode of iMovie Podcast, in which we go through the top 250 films on Letterboxds, not in order.
Just random.
Yeah, in random order. Week by week. Last week was Silence of the Lambs. This week might not come out on the Wednesday, but we don't know yet because we're recording it before the Wednesday, but it might be a bit of a tight schedule.
I agree. Maybe too tight. Let's see what our editor will be able to do. Which magics will appear on this channel.
Yeah. I mean, you can know when you're watching this
and
or
so
listening to this.
So we will.
So will we?
Will we? See.
I'm
taking some coffee to make my brain work a bit better because today, But today we started our first Korean class, so it might be interesting for the Korean literature and film class. So it might be interesting for the future of this channel.
It might
because already Old Boy has been mentioned a couple of times. So
yeah, and a lot of other films that we haven't seen yet, but we will, I guess, see progressively throughout the next few months. But anyway,
what is the topic of today?
What is the topic of today? As you can probably tell by the title of the video,
description. Who knows?
Should be fairly clear, unless we do like a clickbait mystery title that
again we will find out all in the future.
Yeah. But now we will reveal the title, which is The Red Shoes by Powell and Pressburger. Oh, wait, do you want to give their full names? It's Michael Powell and is it Emmerich?
Emmerich
Pressburger.
Who is Hungarian English.
And who, of course, also made Colonel Bloom, A Matter of Life, Defenders, and Black Narcissus. I haven't seen Black Narcissus, but I have seen the other two, both of which I really liked, but I saw quite a long time ago, so I don't have much recollection. And I think I'd already seen The Red Shoes too some time ago, but it was so... Seeing it again this time felt like watching it for the first time, because I didn't have much.
And for me, it was the first time of watching The Red Shoes, and I haven't seen any of the previously mentioned films, but I have seen A Matter of Life and Death by Wallace and Gromit, which I still recommend, by the way. It's nice, it's cute, and it's clay motion if you're a fan.
Which doesn't takes the title, but I don't think it takes any story aspect. But no, it's definitely worth watching as well. Although not the best Wallace and Gromit, I think.
But it's still quite good.
No, it's still good.
Yeah.
It could,
But in any case, without rambling about different topics, we stick with The Red Shoes, which is a film that came out in 1948 and that I just reviewed on Letterboxds, and Clem did when he watched it. It's another film that we watched separately.
Yeah.
And in fact, he watched it with his mom, who has an account called Orchestra New. She does improvisation jazz in London.
On Instagram.
On Instagram. You should check it out if you want.
So, The Red Shoes, which is based, or at least the title is based on a fairy tale by Hans Christian Andersen.
So the one of the Little Mermaid.
Yeah, and a few other fairy tales.
Yeah, exactly. Many, actually. Didn't expect to...
I'm not even sure. Because I kind of confuse him with the Brothers Grimm, in the sense that both of them have created a lot of dark children's fairy tales.
Yeah, but I've read like a couple of titles. We can put them in the...
Yeah, I can show you now which he made. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on Spotify, I guess you should just watch again on YouTube to have kind of visual extras. This film tells the story of a ballet adaptation of this fairy tale, and quite literally the adaptation, the kind of creation of this ballet, which centers around three characters in a kind of, a triangle, not necessarily a love triangle. One of the angles of the triangle is a love story, but there's kind of a story of jealousy that's not necessarily a romantic one involved in the film.
Our friend is still always here. Always wants to be famous.
So the three characters are Victoria Page, who's played by Moira Shearer, and she's trying to join the ballet of Boris Lermontov, played by Anton Walbrook, who himself is kind of a cold figure who's insistent. And at first he kind of rejects her, but gradually he falls in love with her way of dancing, and insists that she dedicates her life to the art of ballet. And the third actor in this triangle is Julian Krasner, played by Marius Goring, who himself is the director of the ballet's orchestra, or the conductor rather of the ballet's orchestra, and he and Victoria fall in love, to the great chagrin of Boris, who himself wishes that both of them would stay focused on their work rather than on this romance.
Yes, also because previously in the company there was another prima ballerina, and she also left because she got married. And one of the first talk between Victoria Page and Boris Lermontov was about this, and the fact that you can't have a love story if you're having a love story with the ballet and the company.
In fact, he asks at different points throughout the film,
why do you want to dance?
Why do you want to live?
I don't know exactly why, but I must.
That's my answer too.
And this kind of dichotomy between art and life, or normal life, is shown because it's each of the men in the film represent one of these options, I guess. And I think both of the men in the film seem like quite horrific options at various points, because you have on one side Julian's character who refuses to let her express her art, and on the other side Boris's character who has this kind of tunnel vision and insistent that she basically dedicate her whole life to dance, and that she doesn't exist outside of that.
She's not a person, she's a dancer. Exactly. And in the other case, she's just the wife, and she's not a person in any case, nor a dancer anymore. She's not allowed to exist in any case.
And I think it's a comment both on, as we said, on that, on life versus art, and it's also a comment on the place, the issue that many women have, and you see it throughout the film also with the previous ballerina, that that marriage is not compatible with their art, and so if they get married or have children or enter a life, a familial life, that means that their work will have to be sacrificed, which you see is an issue for Vicky, because she would actually somehow like to keep dancing, even though she is in love with Julian.
Yes, it's true. She has also somehow to obey to both the standards and the rules, societal rules. So she has to get married somehow. Then fortunately she also falls in love with him, so that's easier, and they had the honeymoon phase. But then at the same time, again, as you were saying, she has to sacrifice something, which is her life, because at the beginning, not only Boris keeps asking her, do you prefer to dance or to live? But at the beginning, he fell for her somehow as a dancer and as an artist, because when he asked her, what is for you? Why are you dancing? What is it for you? And she said, do you know how it is to live? For me, it's that. So, okay, that's the click. And I feel like, yeah, somehow she's living by dancing, and at the same time she's sacrificing it, as you were saying.
And I think
it's not compatible. She can't do both.
Exactly. And I think, so the film actually, I think this triangle, which we've talked about a lot, only really takes place in the last half of the film. The first half of the film is kind of Victoria's journey into becoming a great ballerina, because at first, it's she's really struggling to assert herself and struggling to be able to perform. And, a lot of the, whereas Boris, who's kind of the head of the ballet company,
Yes.
has great faith in her, most of the other teachers and most of the other dancers don't think she's very good.
Yes. But even there, to get his attention, she had to go through her aunt, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
Or in any case, with one of her relatives, who was, like a high society person who wanted to, get Boris into knowing her niece. And so already, like, it was a big struggle, and she could do it thanks to a connection that she had. So that's also, I think, interesting. Because, okay, she was, even once she got accepted, before getting accepted, she had to go through some steps. And again, maybe if she wasn't the niece of this old lady,
yeah, of course,
wouldn't have been able.
Yeah,
so that's also like
a lot of nepotism at play for sure. But I think and then the film, once she's got this position and she becomes the star of this new ballet, which is the theatre, which is actually the music is written by Julian.
Yes.
And this new ballet is called The Red Shoes, and so that's where some of the symbolism in the film comes into play, because the red shoes almost become symbolic of her attachment to ballet, and once she's wearing them, she literally can't stop dancing. And I think that the escape from the red shoes, as is demonstrated by the film's ending, and in fact that need to dance can always become a prison for artists, especially for an art which requires as much discipline. And you really see that, through some of the exercises where she's forced to listen to music even when she's eating, which becomes, torture for her, which she kind of protests against. But she's so desperate to become a great dancer that she accepts it.
Yes.
And so I think probably the most famous sequence from the film is the central sequence, in which we see a number of moments from the ballet,
which is great. That part is so beautiful. It's like, I think like cinematographically, it's one shot after the other, and they are so well put together. The editing is insane, but maybe we can delve into the technical aspects of it in a bit. But now I would also like to add on what you were saying, the parallelism between the Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tale and the Red Shoes, the film, like the connections between the two, because as you were saying, like she has this obsession, and she's imprisoned in this role and in this dancing, obsession and role as a ballerina. And so it's like the role keeps going, and it keeps going both in the fairy tale, because the fairy tale, and I wanted to say this to give a bit of context, in the fairy tale, basically the shoes keep dancing even when at some point the ballerina dies, and she gets her feet cut, and the feet with the red shoes keep dancing. And so somehow the role of the ballerina keeps going while the person itself is not important anymore, is really reduced to nothing. But the ballet
lives on.
And so somehow there is a similarity with the film, without spoiling in this moment, I guess. So yeah, it's to add like to what you were saying. I wanted just to specify 1 second how was the fairy tale, the original fairy tale about. So yeah, but now we can also dive into the beautiful, great scene of the dancing, I guess, of the theater part, the play.
I think one thing that really was interesting for me about this film is the way in which it combines kind of a classical story, the story of the creation of the ballet and that of these characters, with the ballet sequence itself, which lasts quite a long time. I think it's like for maybe 15 minutes,
yeah,
17 minutes.
Around that.
And took 6 weeks to film, apparently. Although there's different claims around that, because one of the directors, I think Michael Powell, denied that it took that long to film, even though the shoot went on for far too long, apparently, with this film, because it was quite, it kind of went over schedule, and the actors had to have extra holiday afterwards because of how hard they worked. So maybe some parallels there between the events in the film and the shooting of the film itself. But yeah, this scene, which is quite surrealist in contrast with the rest of the films, from, let's say, classical nature, or in which many metaphorical elements occur, because we're not seeing the ballet as it's being danced. We're seeing Vicky's perception of the ballet, or Vicky's kind of dreams or visions, in which characters from her life appear in place of other dancers. And even at one point she becomes enveloped in newspaper, or wrapped up in a kind of newspaper.
Wow.
She dances with kind of paper mache newspaper, which is again very notable, and I think we can play that sequence now. So.
Yes. Not only notable, but it's also like you can see the symbols throughout the whole film somehow, and you can keep like being her. But it's also beautiful because she becomes, as she was claiming also before, like no, she needs to dance, it's her life, and she becomes the character she's interpreting somehow, as you were saying, like with projecting her life into the play. And she becomes the red shoes ballerina, and she becomes it so much that, spoiler, 1, 2, 3, and yeah, at the end, she is the ballerina of the fairy tale of Andersen, because she dies and she wants Julian to get her shoes removed. The red shoes, and they keep dancing because the next sequences of the play kept being played and danced and performed, and the shoes are there without her. And as Clem was making me notice before, the cone of light, or in general the spotlight and the attention is on her absence and on the red shoes. So it's really that in the end.
Yeah.
End of the spoiler. But if we want to stick to that beautiful sequence of around 15 minutes, 17, whatever it is, it's so great how not only her personal life and the story and everything is super interconnected, but how it is. Because one thing, for example, Clem watched it before me, and you were telling me, look how insane is the depth of the field, the lights, and the colors. It's a film of 1948.
Especially the color of the red shoes, which somehow are much more red than any other the reds on the screen. Especially in the beginning of that dance sequence, when she first comes onto the stage, the shoes are almost luminous, like rubies, and they draw the eye of the viewer. And also, I think that Dario Argento, when he made Suspiria, which is another film that relies heavily on the color red, or features the color red notably in its palette, notably and unavoidably, which apparently took inspiration from the red
of this film,
of the red shoes.
Yeah, because it's true. It's so vivid. It's so there. You can't. Your attention is true towards it.
Aren't they also dancers in Spirit, by the way? They're
Yes,
attending
they
a
are
dance
indeed.
school. Yeah,
It's true.
there you go. That's another
It's
connection.
very true. And also, by the way, even Victoria Page, who is played by Moira Shearer, Moira Shearer is actually a dancer in real life, so that's also relevant, I think.
Well, you can see that because she is very
exactly
good.
And that's one thing that I also appreciate a lot. They cast an actress who is actually a dancer, and so she can play. She doesn't need like a counter figure to play.
I guess it's easier for a dancer to learn how to act than for an actor to learn how to dance, right?
Yes, but okay, at least still made this effort to cast a ballerina. And that's good. A ballet dancer, not even a random dancer. In fact, she has that discipline. She had the posture of the ballerina. And I think like, okay, because also you were saying we participate in the process of creating this play and this show, and you feel like the ballet shoes on the parquet, so on the wood, and you feel like the stage excitement and thrill, and the noises somehow are there. And I danced in my life, and I mean as a child and a teenager, so I every year more or less I did like some shows and some performances, and that feeling of those shoes on the wood is
and you really feel nervous just before they start as well. I mean, you feel the anticipation, especially in that scene where Julian just before they start playing, and Julian comes in and says, "Good luck, and I'll follow you." And you feel like, that's that type of, just before the performance or the first performance.
Yeah, because Julian in this moment, of course, is directing the orchestra. And there was a scene before where Vicky was trying to follow the music, and she couldn't manage because it was like too quick. And but Julian was insisting on the fact that she had to follow. And at the end, just before the going on stage, then him telling her this thing, I think it was very nice, and I think somehow it played a role in the love story between them.
Yeah,
because he was supporting her, which he wasn't very. I mean, he never did it before.
Well, he was certainly much warmer to her than either Boris, but also Grisha, who's the teacher and kind of head dancer who's training her how to dancing, who's also very strict and harsh on her. And even he says after the dance, it wasn't. What does he say? It wasn't good, but it wasn't bad.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's kind of the nicest thing he's ever said to her.
But then after he admitted that it was actually good.
Yeah, that's true.
That's good.
Yeah, he's like the kind of bad cop to Julian's good cop, I guess. Another thing that I was pointing to note is the film is very well written, I think, and there's a few moments where the writing stands out as making what could be a very cliched scene something a bit better. For instance, when they the whole company is celebrating after one of the nights in which they performed, and Julian and Vicky have eloped together or spending the night together
and they're not participating
in a cart.
Yeah,
they kind of have this romantic talk where he projects himself into the future and says,
"One day when I'm old, I want some lovely young girl to say to me, 'Tell me, where in your long life, Mr. Craster, were you most happy?' And I shall say, 'Well, my dear, I never knew the exact place, but it was somewhere on the Mediterranean. I was with Victoria Page.' What, she will say? Do you mean the famous dancer?"
And I think that because their story isn't focused on much by the film, it could easily feel like a bit rushed. But the fact that those scenes are kind of quite well written, you end up being more convinced by it only takes one or two scenes for them to convince you of that story, and then it doesn't feel as rushed or out of nowhere as it could be in another case, because it happens very quickly.
Yes, it's true. But also, I think because they portray it as very free, especially I think okay, in the end, we're mostly following her as a character, so Victoria Page, and somehow to feel like, especially considering she's a woman in those years, we perceive her love as pure and as very free, even if then, of course, there are the developments that we mentioned before, so that she's not really able to go on with her dancing career, even if she keeps training to be a ballerina and to keep being in good shape. But the initial ideas in their couple is that both can manage to keep going with their careers and their passions and their jobs. So I think this is also somehow giving us these elements make us believe that they can actually work as a couple.
Although it quickly transpires that Julian is
the leading,
that he is not.
She will follow him.
So open to doing that, I guess.
Mm.
Or that in any case, the two men are both very possessive with Victoria, and therefore can't really coexist in her life. One thing we discussed before off camera was about whether Boris perceived Victoria in a romantic way. For me, Boris doesn't perceive Victoria in a romantic way, although I think some people could interpret it differently. What do you think about this?
At the beginning, allora, I had to interrupt this film for personal reasons. And basically, when he asked me this question, I hadn't seen the after play part of the film, so after the exhibition of the red shoes. I didn't see the part after, and in the moment I thought, yes, absolutely, it's also romantic. For me, it was also romantic. After that, finishing the film, I thought, actually, you know what? You were right. I don't think it's super romantic. I don't think that's the point. We don't care too much. As we don't care too much somehow about...
How do you mean we don't care?
We don't care about the love part.
No, I'm not saying whether we care or not. I'm saying whether
I know. It is romantic. But the fact is, what I want to say is that that's not the point. So it can be. To some levels, I think it is. I don't know which, probably more of a platonic love.
Well, that's what I mean. I think it's, rather than being the choice between two men, I think it's the choice between the art and the life of matrimony, or the life of a woman, the life of an artist in the 1950s context, but with the life of the artist also being kind of toxic and extreme, as is shown by Boris.
Yes, I agree. And obsessive, and as you said, like with a lot of discipline that is super pushed onto her, and that she also pushes onto herself. Yes, absolutely. But I think, and I want to connect this to what we talked about before, there are, as you said, like just a few scenes of the love story between Julian and Victoria, and they're well made, so we believe. But at the same time, as a spectator, you don't need to care about this love story too much, because you need to believe in it, and it's useful to the struggle, the clash between, as you were saying, like the life and the dancing life somehow, like this obsessive passion and the matrimonial life. So it's more functional to discuss this contrast between her inner desire and how it's becoming like a prison, and what also society is expecting, and what she also was probably desiring in some moments. But I wonder also why. I think somehow it's also due to educational ideas that were passed to her.
And I think, yeah, absolutely. And I think also, I mean, everything has to be taken with the lens of the 1950s.
Exactly.
Because I think, when we say this is a convincing love story, I mean, if a film came out today, we'd probably say, well, it seems a bit old-fashioned. But in the 1950s, I mean, it's a very different context.
Yeah.
And also, I think it's worth comparing this film to other stories about artists who have somehow become consumed by their art, whether that's Black Swan with Natalie Portman, also in the world of dance, whether that's Perfect Blue in the world of music, let's say.
Perfect Blue, the anime?
Yeah, or the animated film.
The anime, because that one is also in the top 250.
It is.
So that would be interesting also to compare in the future when we watch
there's
it.
very big tonal differences, but I think it has some similarities.
Of course. Yeah.
Let's say. I don't know, I'm trying to think of some other films that sort of similar, but but even Inland Empire by David Lynch, where it's kind of you become, it's this film, it's about the creation of a film where the lines between the film and the making of the film become blurred, and the character isn't no longer sure whether she's the actress or the character.
You have a new role to play, I hear.
Up for a role?
No. I definitely heard that you have it.
And I think somehow that idea of the blurring of the lines between your art and your life is very present in The Red Shoes, as is explicitly shown by the sequence where she's on stage and suddenly the characters from this ballet become represented by characters from her life, as if she herself is no longer sure, is no longer able to make the difference between performance and reality, which is very interesting, I think.
See, it's extremely interesting because also I think in many cases it's even relatable. If it's not with...
I don't know. Yeah,
I think for many people, yeah, exactly. And you don't really understand where is the line, if there is any, if there's the need to draw any line.
Well, I think that's maybe symbolically when those, because so both Boris and Julian appear in that ballet sequence as roles, as characters from the ballet. So of course this story of the ballerina who cannot stop dancing until she dies, and so it's like the price to pay for brilliance is to never be able to escape from the art, of course, resonates in Vicky's life in the most devastating way. And we were just looking at the influence of this film, which is far-reaching in that many... one example we just saw is Hitchcock's Vertigo, which apparently takes from this film in terms of... And you can kind of see as well, Hitchcock's Vertigo has got that, firstly, that incredible colour palette, and secondly, that blend of surrealism and classical storytelling, which I guess has got some similarities here.
I guess.
Yeah.
I can only guess.
Yeah. For now.
Yes. And even like few big directors even mentioned this film as their favorite of all time, like Scorsese, De Palma, Francis Ford Coppola. I don't know. Sofia Coppola. But yes, in any case, so it's very influential, but I can see why, because as we were saying, like also yes, the colors are great. The lighting in some moments is so beautiful when she's on stage dancing in that quite kind of nightmare sometimes, and very dreamy scenes in the. Yeah.
But I think it has some things of a horror film, which is
absolutely.
It's not part of the horror register in terms of its mood, but some of the, it has something. It's almost like some aspects of it become psychological horror and entrapment, and even though the film itself kind of misdirects you into thinking you're watching something very, trying to say very, kind of a ballroom drama or something lighter, it actually has many darker themes that are lingering just under the surface, and even though they aren't explicitly pointed out, they remain present, and you feel them. I think
you feel them very much, and also I think the more the time passes since you watch the film, the more you are realizing that some themes were there. You were like, yes, this very obsessive and consuming discipline. At the beginning I didn't really perceive it that much. I mean, at the end, yes, but it's with the time passing, I could. I mean, okay, I finished it 2 days ago, 1 day ago, but I'm really thinking, yes, she was completely consumed, and maybe this is one of the earliest film adaptations of this topic, because you mentioned the Black Swan, I've seen it, and you can feel it very much, and I think it's also very well made in that sense. But maybe it's more explicit in the way
Whiplash
it's portrayed. Even Whiplash
as well has got some similarities.
But this one is there. It's very there, and it's. I think it's very deeply touched. In terms of the themes, are very well explored, but they are not, as you were saying, like put onto your face.
No.
Just a few moments. Then the rest is building like step by step at the bottom, and because what we see on the surface is another story or other stories, but then actually it's all about this personal struggle to understanding what you want and until what point what you want is good for you.
Exactly, and I think because I didn't remember the ending of the film, and I think I was half expecting her to run off with Julian and to kind of choose that, which I'm really glad wasn't the ending. I would have found that extremely disappointing. In the same way that I found in the original Pygmalion, and probably also in My Fair Lady, but in the original Pygmalion film from the 1930s, I always find the ending to that to be absolutely disappointing and too conventional. And I'm really glad that we avoided this ending, because I also don't think thematically it would have made any sense with the content of the film at all. And I'm also glad she didn't end up just staying as a dancer as part of the show, because also I think that's not what she wants. She wanted to have some sort of autonomy and to be able to have some choice, and she's stuck between
these
two men who aren't malleable. I mean, they aren't flexible at all, ironically enough.
See, and as we say, they are. I mean, do we really care? I mean, as I was saying before, like the caring thing, do we care that they are two men? No, because they're just the symbols of something different. And so this is also where the subtlety and the depth of the themes in these films is coming out. Because, I mean, we don't really care if she goes with a man or with another. We care about what she chooses, her life, two aspects of her life. And then in the end, she ends up deciding for a spoiler, none of the two. Or her life in her death.
Like the only true freedom, I guess, is like when stuck between two prisons, and you do feel like they're both institutional prisons, and you really get that sense, especially towards the end of the film, that whichever she chooses, she'll never have that true freedom, and therefore, her eventual choice, I guess, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Even if I also thought, oh no. I mean, I know that it's a consideration that has been made recently, but okay, in the past, but even now, many films is the woman who dies. But again...
But I actually didn't expect it in the 1950s, because it's quite a graphic death theme, which wouldn't have been necessarily... I wouldn't have expected that to happen.
But again, even here, symbolism after symbolism. What does she ask? Please, to Julian. The last thing she says is, remove my red shoes. And he does it.
Freeing her from this burden.
Take off the red shoes.
Yeah, and at the same time, continuing the story of the play of the red shoes and the play and the fairy tale.
Yeah, the parallels continue.
Because the red shoes keep dancing without her. She dies. Her feet have been cut with the red shoes, and they keep dancing, and she can't anymore. So it's like it's also very intense, and yes, as you were saying much before, very dark.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's beautiful. And by the way, we are making a playlist of the films that you can find both in the top 250 feature-length films on Letterboxds and on YouTube for free.
Because this whole film is available on YouTube.
Exactly.
It's copyright, I guess, expired. So
yeah. So give it a chance on YouTube. And
it is. It's very.
There aren't like.
Watching.
Yeah. There aren't. The well-made English subtitles, but there are the auto-generated ones that are okay, I guess.
Yeah.
The fact is some parts are a bit in French, but I think it's not super fundamental to the plot.
No.
And was about to say you can understand some things, but it depends where you're from.
It does.
But if you speak a romantic language, and then you can understand. And yeah.
Yeah, and so that was our first exploration of Powell and Pressburger on this channel. I think at least one or two of their other films, are in the top 250 as a duo.
I don't know, but also we can tell you how Watt's position in this moment.
It's quite high.
Very high. It's like 51st, if I'm not wrong. Is exactly 56th.
So yeah, 56 rated film on Letterboxd.
Top 100 is so...
I feel like we've already talked about the 56 rated films. I mean, I don't know. I guess they change position all the time. Yeah. But no, I really enjoyed seeing it. If I'd seen it before, I didn't remember it much. But I think it's so absolutely beautiful to watch, and a story that remains captivating and relevant to this day. And extremely formally, as we say, there's a lot of innovation in the way, in the form in which it's made, and the way in which it switches, and isn't scared to represent things and through metaphors and to go into this hyper-real ballet sequence, which I think is one of the most remarkable and notable things about the film.
Yeah, really. And she dances beautifully and super well made. It's really like, one thing I wanted to mention is that I was amazed during that, especially during that sequence, of how great the editing has been and was and is, because is again 1948, so it's old, and I don't know how they managed. In some moments you can see that the reel that they used. I mean, you can understand somehow how they cut it and how they put everything together. But in some moments, it's so faded. The reels and the scenes are fading into each other in some super well-made ways and like the transparency of the scenes are combining, and I don't know. It seems like a contemporary editing somehow, or in any case, a much more modern editing. But actually, it's old and it's so super brilliantly made. And I really thought, like, technically, how did they do it? How could they do it? Because also, I guess there was at the beginning only one copy. So if you ruined that, you ruined the sequence. And then in that case, I would even understand why it took 6 weeks or around 6 weeks, because it is so insanely well made.
Well, I read that Moira Shearer said that she was frustrated when filming because they did so many takes that she never actually danced very long at once. So she'd only dance for like 10 seconds at a time before they cut and did another take. So for a dancer, it must have been a bit frustrating to never really get into the flow of things. But you understand that because it's a film, it's not a live performance, so you have to... It's an entirely different thing. I guess for a dancer, it's have to get used to that different form.
Yeah. And also, I think also for your body, it's a bit hard because you're getting in one flow and then you have to break it, and also to give the same performance if you're not in that mood anymore, or if your mood is more like to act. It's a bit intense. Yes. But very well made, really. Give it a chance at least to that sequence. It's worth it.
But no, I think the whole film is really worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. But if you don't want to at all, please give it a chance at least to that. Have a look, because it's really super brilliantly made.
Yeah, we'll put the link here.
Yeah.
It should be there in that corner. Above Leslie said.
Maybe above yours.
I think it'll be above yours.
And also from that moment on, I thought the first time the time when I watched it, I thought from that moment on it would have been only the play and not the film or the construction of the show anymore. So I was surprised when we went back to the life of
Victoria. Very interesting. I also think I was wondering how long it would last. Yeah. But I'm quite glad it went back to the... I liked the fact that it was just a kind of intermission. Although it would have also been interesting if it stayed in that mode for longer.
It would have been a different
it would have been very different. Yeah.
But still, it was super connected in any case. It was super... I mean, the two stories
Yeah.
were super interconnected.
And it's yet another film that features Swan Lake.
Also, shout out to the beautiful music and
Yeah,
soundtrack.
absolutely. Which the theme from the Red Shoes plays throughout the film, not just in the ballet sequences, but also in other moments.
Yeah, also because, as Clem said before, she was forced to listen to the music while she was even eating, so we were also forced with her.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, it's a very well made, I think. Also, the costumes and the makeup was very interesting and brilliant, and I have in my head now the image that I think is also on Letterboxds as the cover of the film.
Yeah,
where during, like, in the middle of her performance of the Red Shoes, she goes like this, and you can see like the eyeliner being around her eye.
Yeah.
And it's I didn't expect it. Now I don't know how much makeup they were actually wearing in the plays in those years, but I liked it. It was very theatrical and performative, but also with her real emotions, and it was cool.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's right. Again, color red appearing prominently.
Lightning, perfect.
Yeah. So
that's all for today.
That's all for this week. It was, I think, an interesting discussion we had. I guess we will see you next week, where we talk about, we don't know which film it will be yet, but we will find out soon.
Yeah, and you maybe sooner than us.
In the meantime, subscribe to
our channel,
please. And keep an eye out on our Instagram, where we upload shorts every day and little factoids about
different films that we like. Some that are in the top 250, some that are not, but we wish they were.
And some that we don't even wish, some that we're just interested in sharing something about.
Yeah. Like recently we put a clip of Kermode talking about the Sex and the City too.
Yeah.
We wouldn't put it in the top 250.
No, but
can it be a fun experience to watch it?
It can.
Yeah. Cringing most of the time.
Yeah.
And that would be a very interesting review to make, to be honest.
Yeah, but so we will see you next time, I guess.
Yeah, and if you have any consideration to make, or any anecdote, please also leave them in the comment. And see you. Bye.